At first, The Neon Demon and Kiki's Delivery Service might seem like two very different movies, and in many ways they are, but they actually have way more in common than you might think. The basic setup of both stories is pretty much the same. In The Neon Demon, our protagonist, Jessie, is a 16-year-old girl trying to break into the modeling industry. Kiki is a 13-year-old girl trying to ply her trade as a witch. They both come from small towns to a big, intimidating city. They both run into a boy that likes them, who they become romantically involved with. Both of them encounter more experienced peers who can tell, just by looking at them, that they're new in town.
You're new, aren't you?
Yep, how'd you guess? I just left home tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just get to LA, Jessie? How'd you know? You've got that look. Oh, don't worry, honey. That whole deer in the headlights thing is exactly what they want.
And at their core, both films ask many of the same questions about a person's relationship to the aspects of themselves that make them unique. For example, how should people understand and work with their uniqueness? And how can the world around them use the idea of a unique and inherent gift to exploit them? In both films, what makes Kiki and Jessie special is obvious to outsiders. Their unique gifts are why their love interests, Tombo and Dean, notice them. They're why both characters quickly get jobs. And ultimately, they're what the primary conflict of each film revolves around. And then, from those similar origins and themes, the movies diverge thematically, each ending up with very different messages about how someone should understand their uniqueness. This may surprise you, but both of these films are fairy tales. That's obvious in the case of Kiki's Delivery Service, since it's pretty similar to Disney's own coming-of-age fairy tales like The Little Mermaid, which came out just 1 year later. The Neon Demon was described by director Nicholas Winding Refn as a fairy tale for adults. And it's worthwhile to examine these fairy tales because such stories are almost universally intended to impart a moral. And especially because these two films are fairy tales with very similar premises and a lot of similar plot points, but with wildly different audiences, there's an interesting question to be asked here. Across these two similar stories, what similarities and differences are there between the messages that are being presented to adult audiences versus younger audiences? Specifically, I'll be focusing on 5 shared themes that stuck out to me the most, and comparing what it is that each work has to say about those themes. Theme 1. Unique gifts. Both The Neon Demon and Kiki's Delivery Service are focused on the idea of individuals having an inherent gift. For Kiki, this is her witch's powers, flying a broom and talking to her cat Gigi, not to be confused with the Neon Demon character Gigi. For Jessie, it is her beauty. Both protagonists believe that these gifts are the things that make them special. They both discuss how they have no other marketable skills, and therefore this one gift is pivotal if they are ever to have a future.
I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't write. No real talent. But I'm pretty. And I can make money off pretty.
And what exactly is your skill?
Well, I haven't really decided that yet. Well, I really only have one skill, and that's flying.
And neither film directly challenges this idea. Both girls are already set on their life track by the time we meet them. And the thing that set them on this track is a core gift, which the audience is meant to understand is effectively what makes them who they are. And with one exception, all of the characters around them reinforce this belief rather than challenging it.
You can tell she's a witch because she always wears a dark dress.
It's a great idea. Kiki's Flying Delivery Service.
People see you. They notice.
Broom and a black cat. Well, it's just as my great-grandmother told me.
Do you know how lucky you are?
You gotta be a real witch. The way you can fly that broom. Do you think maybe you can teach me how to fly it?
Theme 2. Employers and exploiters. As they arrive in the big city, both girls are supported in their career endeavors by the adults they meet there. I say supported because these adults aren't all operating out of the kindness of their hearts. There's an exchange of labor for value occurring here. Though Asono is a very nice boss, all things considered, she still requires Kiki to pay the rent via deliveries and minding the store. The reason Kiki stumbles into that position in the first place is that Asono sees her gift of flight and considers how it could be used for deliveries of goods to customers. It's weird to see it that way because overall Asono is understanding and supportive, even when Kiki can't do deliveries due to losing her ability to fly, but it's still true. The thing about Asono's support is that although it's unwavering, it's also inflexible. Asono offers to let Kiki work in the store until her powers return, but she doesn't consider that there are other options for Kiki that don't require her unique gift. Like, flying isn't the only way to deliver things. But Asono doesn't really take that into consideration, and so she passively endorses Kiki's belief that her powers aren't something she could or should happily survive without.
What do you mean? You haven't lost your magic, have you?
It's become very weak, so I think I've got to take a break from my delivery work. But I promise I'll be really good with my work in the bakery, so please let me stay in the room upstairs.
Well, that's no problem. I'll bet your powers come back after you've had some rest.
Over in the Neon Demon, Jessie meets with a talent agent who immediately sees her value. And there is an obvious predatory and manipulative edge to the business relationship.
I would never say you're fat. But that doesn't mean that someone else won't. Understand?
Which results in the talent agent telling Jessie to forge her dead parents' signatures on a contract and to tell everyone that she's 19. When Jessie pushes back on this, thinking that no one will believe her being 19 when she's actually 16, the talent agent responds,
Honey, people believe what they are told.
And this statement ends up being true in several different ways throughout the movie. So Jessie does what she's told, forging the signature and lying about her age to kickstart her modeling career. Jessie also has to deal with a landlord who is an exploitative sleazeball. Imagine my shock. Who exploits her monetarily and might intend to exploit her sexually.
Feel the leadership. Room 214. Gotta be seen.
More centrally though, after Jessie headlines fashion designer Roberto Sarno's fashion show, Sarno explains in more detail why Jessie is valuable to him.
Look at Jessie. Nothing fake, nothing false. A diamond in a sea of glass. True beauty is the highest currency we have. No, without it, she would be nothing.
In both of these films, we see that the unique gifts of these girls are exploited by people in positions of power around them. But more interestingly, these people ensure the continued value of their employee by reinforcing the idea that these gifts are synonymous with the value and self-worth of these girls. It's just like the talent agent said.
Honey, people believe what they are told.
Theme 3. Boys and Romance. Kiki and Jessie's love interests in the films are both also drawn to them based on their uniqueness. Tombo is really into flying and flying machines, so Kiki's ability to fly is an obvious attractor for him. Dean is drawn to Jessie by her looks, but Dean is also the one exception I noted earlier, because he does try to help her understand that she's more than just good looks.
I think you're probably good at a lot of things.
You can't tell. We just met.
We didn't just meet.
We met the other day.
Trust me. I can tell.
And he pushes back against Sarno on the idea that looks are the only reason he's interested in her.
I think you're wrong.
Excuse me?
I said I think you're wrong.
So you're gonna tell me that it's what's inside that counts?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. Hey, let's get out of here. I want to go.
So go.
It's at this point that we see that Jessie has completely internalized these messages about her beauty that basically everyone but Dean have been pushing on her the whole film. Rather than accepting Dean's support of her as more than just a pretty face, she tells him to leave and continues to hang out with people that reinforce her belief that beauty is all she is. In both of these cases, the inception of these romances are at least somewhat related to these girls' uniqueness, and the boys don't effectively dissuade Kiki or Jessie from the idea that this is what they're there for. Dean fails to do this because Jessie doesn't want to listen, but Tombo doesn't even try. I did the math, and 33 out of Tombo's 49 lines in the film, or 67%, are directly related to Kiki being a witch, Kiki being able to fly, flying machines, or just the concept of flying.
Of course, you were flying since you were very young. It's called the Aviation Club, and we'd really like for you to come. I love flying too. Can I see your broom? How come you're not flying today? Hey, wait. You can't not enjoy flying. You're a witch. I'm planning on flying this thing during most of my summer vacation.
Theme 4. Talent, Beauty, and Self. Many of the other characters around Jessie reinforce the point of Jessie's beauty as the only thing that makes her important or special very directly, by saying so.
True beauty is the highest currency we have. No, without it, she would be nothing.
But in Kiki's delivery service, it's less directly stated. Most people that Kiki encounters are impressed by her witch abilities, but they don't explicitly rule out the idea that she has other things about her that might make her unique. That is, until the point where Kiki loses her powers. It's at this point that we see the other characters failing to challenge Kiki when she asserts that losing her powers would leave her with nothing.
I'm still in training to become a witch. If I lose my magic, that means I've lost absolutely everything.
Kiki!
Rather than helping Kiki understand that maybe she's more than just these powers, both Sono and Ursula only reassure her that losing her powers is just temporary. Ursula, who in many ways is like a benevolent mirror universe version of Ruby. Anyways, Ursula directly compares Kiki's situation to when she gets stuck working on a painting, and reassures Kiki that if she spends time doing nothing, she'll eventually get her powers back. Not that she should consider trying new things to find if she has any other talents, but that she should do self-care.
Take long walks, look at the scenery, doze off at noon, don't even think about flying. And then, pretty soon you'll be flying again.
Ursula also explains that she has always wanted to be a painter, but that she was stuck for a long time painting what she called bad imitations of paintings she'd seen before, until she came to understand why she wanted to paint. And then, upon finding inspiration again, she could continue her work. Kiki then relates that she has always wanted to be a witch, but that she never asked herself why she wanted to be a witch. The obvious question of, do I actually want to be a witch, or am I doing this just out of tradition, isn't considered. Instead, Kiki takes Ursula's message very directly, that she just needs to find a reason to keep doing this thing that she's always been told she should do. They're framing this issue as not a question of direction, but one of motivation. Both Ursula and Kiki's direction in life is not something that's been in question, but their motivation has been, but only ever as a temporary setback before continuing on their journey. Both accept, unquestioningly, the direction that their lives have been set in, and that it must be based on an inherent talent. Theme 5. The validity of the artificial. Part of the conceit of Jessie and Kiki's gifts being inherent, essential, and unique is that they cannot be imitated effectively. Both films feature characters trying to imitate these gifts, and these imitations are found lacking. Tombo's flying bike prototype, for example, doesn't quite fly, and Tombo describes it as being a goofy imitation of Kiki's flying.
People like you can just fly away on a broomstick, but me? That's all I can do.
In a conversation at dinner, Sarno discusses plastic surgery with Gigi and another woman. Sarno says that plastic surgery should be avoided because
You can always tell when beauty is manufactured. And if you aren't born beautiful, you never will be.
That's terrible.
No, it's true.
Then, to prove this, he challenges Dean to compare Gigi and Jessie in terms of beauty. Dean plays into Sarno's hand, of course saying that the woman he's dating is more beautiful, and therefore implying that Gigi's beauty is somehow considered less. But Sarno isn't opposed to using Gigi in his fashion shows, and he only brings up this hierarchy when it suits his purposes. In this case, playing up his rising star and putting his established people in their place. This tactic puts the blame for Gigi's fall from the spotlight on Jessie, rather than it being on the person that controls the spotlight, Sarno himself. The structural causes of Gigi's loss of status are explained entirely in interpersonal terms that rely on fixed, inherent characteristics of the participants, rather than acknowledging the structure putting them both in this confrontational situation. The points I've covered here all refer on some level to the idea that Kiki and Jessie are defined by a unique and essential gift that makes them special. This is similar to a form of thinking that researchers call psychological essentialism, which is a belief that different groups, and therefore the individuals that comprise those groups, possess an inherent, immutable essence that defines them. Another big problem with this way of thinking is that it leaves anyone not born with a special gift permanently out of luck. The only way to truly fly is to be born a witch. The only way to be truly beautiful is to be born beautiful. By treating attempts to artificially change yourself as invalid, a number of things are accomplished for the people in a position to decide what is and isn't real. A hierarchy is immediately established, which favors those in possession of natural talents and beauties.
Pretty new girl walks into a room, everyone's head turns, looks her up and down, wondering, who's she fucking? Who could she fuck? And how high can she climb, and is it higher than me?
The have-nots are then left to struggle against this fixed idea that they will never be able to be more than they currently are. This all provides an easy, black and white way of looking at the world, easing the cognitive burden of those participating in it. These ideas are so effective, at least in part, because they rely on ways of thinking that have their origins in developing minds. Specifically, essentialist thinking has been identified as a base-level belief in children. It is also effective because, weirdly enough, it can be used opportunistically. In a 2009 study called Shifting Ground, the variable use of essentialism in contexts of inclusion and exclusion, it was demonstrated that essentialist beliefs were strategically employed by prejudiced individuals when the situation suited them. The present research shows that prejudiced people see race in essentialist terms only when it can be used to exclude them, i.e. the minority. When we, the majority, are excluded on racial terms, it becomes more important to play down the essential features of race. Thus, prejudice, commitment to inequality, and essentialist ideas can be fused together in order to pursue particular lines of racist argument, but can equally be diffused when alternative lines of argumentation are necessary. And then, at the end of the Neon Demon, we're shown the results of buying into these essentialist ideas. Because there is no way for those lower in the hierarchy to change themselves in a way that will meaningfully elevate them, they have to literally kill the competition if they want to change. This results in the murder of Jessie by Gigi, Sarah, and Ruby. And then, they eat her. And that may seem really weird, but it actually makes a lot of sense if you read the Neon Demon as both a fantastical fairy tale and as an interrogation of essentialist thinking. The idea of consuming something, usually an animal, to gain special characteristics from the essence of that thing is pretty common across cultures. The film is ambiguous about whether this act actually had the desired magical outcome, but it's not ambiguous that the moral of this story is that you don't want to end up dead like Jessie or a cannibal like the other girls. Even if the cannibalistic ritual did work, one of the last things we see in the movie is Gigi stabbing herself to death with scissors to try to get Jessie out, but not before vomiting up an eyeball, which Sarah eats. It's probably not a coincidence that the events and imagery in the final scenes of the film are reminiscent of the gruesome punishments in old fairy tales, like the wicked stepsisters cutting off chunks of their own feet and getting their eyes pecked out in Cinderella. The heartless aloofness of Jessie near the end of the film, and the violent desperation of the other girls, paints the whole situation as clearly undesirable, wrong, destructive, or all of the above for just about everyone. Except for the various predators who construct and participate in the system that commodifies and exploits beauty. They're seemingly still going strong by the end of the movie, conspicuously unpunished. It's a dark ending, but it's bold and imparts some refreshingly simple morals alongside its nuanced questions. By comparison, the ending of Kiki's delivery service is happy. She regains her power of flight in a moment of need and saves the day. I like this ending, it always makes me feel good to watch, but under the surface, it has some issues. The question posed by Kiki earlier in the film, why does she want to be a witch, isn't answered in a way that satisfies me when I really think about it. It's implied that Kiki has an epiphany when she gets an appreciative cake from an old lady who she made deliveries for, and it seems like she comes to the conclusion that she wants to be a witch so that she can help people and be appreciated. But outside of the climactic scene where she wills herself to fly again so she can save Tombo's life, is flight really the best way for Kiki to meet her goals of helping people or being appreciated? How many more local dirigible accidents will Kiki be able to help out with? I'm just not convinced that flying and making deliveries are even in the top 50 ways that Kiki could meet her apparent life goal of helping people. And we've seen several cases in the film where her deliveries aren't appreciated at all.
It must be my present from Auntie! Yay! Give it to me! Oh. Ha! This is dumb.
Oh no, I told Grandma I didn't want that.
Hey, what'd you get?
Oh, Grandma sent me another one of her crummy herring pies again.
Yummy herring pie.
Will you please sign this receipt for me?
I hate Grandma's stupid pies.
The movie just gently steps around those issues, and instead gives us an ending that reinforces the necessity of Kiki's powers and returns her to the status quo. So with this ending, the film fails to challenge its essentialist message. The movie says, "Kiki, you are a witch. Witches fly, therefore you should fly. If you can't or won't do witch things, then you're failing to be the only thing that you can successfully be. Look inside yourself and fix whatever's stopping you from performing witchness. You must find a way to love the job and the role that you have, even if that role was determined at your birth." The Neon Demon, on the other hand, does challenge its original message by portraying the bad results of essentialist thinking and showing its audience that these beliefs are harmful and dangerous when taken to their logical conclusions. And speaking of logical conclusions, essentialist ways of thinking are positively correlated with stereotyping and prejudice, and negatively correlated with an interest in reducing disparities between groups. It should then be unsurprising that essentialist thinking is easy to recognize among the writings of racists, sexists, fascists, and of course transphobes, since they're obsessed with gender essentialism. To be clear, essentialist thinking isn't necessarily all bad, and it's not always harmful. But because of its already privileged position within the developing mind, it necessarily needs to be challenged in order for people to have more equitable and nuanced thoughts. And it's for this reason that I'm declaring that The Neon Demon has a better message than Kiki's Delivery Service. That's not to say it's a better movie or that kids should be seeing it, but the way that Kiki defines uniqueness fails to challenge its permanence or essentialness, and fails to provide any alternative to this way of thinking, and that results in it just reinforcing a very basic essentialist message. In a film meant for children, maybe that doesn't sound like a problem to most people, but I think that's why it's a problem. We shouldn't think of challenging what seems obvious as something that should be reserved for adults. It's that much more important for children, because children already tend to think in a crude essentialist way. The only benefit of saving these messages for adult audiences is to blow minds.
Whoa.
Which is kind of what the Neon Demon is going for. It's challenging some very basic assumptions that a lot of people never grew out of, and that some have learned to exploit mercilessly. And it's good that it's challenging those things. That's why it's an enjoyably subversive little movie. But when we fail to properly interrogate these simplistic beliefs that begin to form at an early age, it's not at all unsurprising that they become a major part of our culture and our world. And, as I've discussed, there's real harm caused by allowing people to uncritically hold on to these beliefs, because these beliefs force individuals into rigid, culturally assigned roles. They cause people to be unable to see individuals as more than just their group memberships. They're also used by the powerful to justify their made-up hierarchies when it suits them. So no, I'm not saying that The Neon Demon is a better or more wholesome movie than Kiki's Delivery Service, but I do think that kids need to hear what The Neon Demon has to say more than they need to hear what Kiki's Delivery Service has to say. So, as heretical and surprising as it is for me to say, in this case at least, Hayao Miyazaki could probably learn a thing or two from Nicholas Winding Refn. Now, I can't do an impression of... I can't do a British impression, no.